This is Mrs. Wainwright's Math Class, Chapter 2, Lessons 3, 4, 6, and 8, Long Division with two-digit divisors. Our learning target: by the end of the lesson, you should confidently be able to say, I can divide by two-digit divisors. In this lesson, you should already know the steps for regular long division, but in case you need to look back at it, we learned the regular long division in the video titled Mrs. Wainwright's Math Class, Chapter 1, Lesson 8, and Chapter 2, Lesson 1b, Divide by one-digit divisors. You can find that video listed online. So when dividing with the two-digit divisors, we follow those same steps for long division as we learned in that video. There's just a couple of things we changed since it's a two-digit divisor. And as a reminder, this is how we remember our steps for long division. Does Mrs. Wainwright savor chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. When we say does, we write the D. When we say Mrs. Wainwright, we write the M. When we say savor, we write the S. When we say chocolate, we write the C. When we say bars, we write the B. When we say regularly, we write the R. And when we say certainly, we write the C. And then it's underline the B, arrow from the B to the D. The D stands for divide, M stands for multiply, S stands for subtract, C stands for compare, B stands for bring down, R stands for remainder, and C stands for circle. Again, after we bring down, we underline our number, and we go back and divide. So let's take a look. So again, as you can see, we follow the same steps for long division as we do with a single-digit or a one-digit divisor. The only difference is we do not have all the multiples of most two-digit divisors memorized. So when that happens, when we have a two-digit divisor and we don't know the multiples of it, we need to use scrap paper and benchmarks. Newsflash, there's the lazy man's trick here. And the lazy man's trick is save the scrap paper to look back at. It's going to help you when you multiply, it's going to help you when you go back to do a check, and it may help you with other problems down the line. So save your scrap paper. So let's take a look at example 1. Number 1 says 2,620 divided by 14. So just like our other steps for long division, I'm going to write this in the division box. I am not going to write the commas in the box. So 2,620 divided by 14. And just like our other steps for long division, I'm going to give Mrs. Wainwright her chocolate bars. So I look at my dividend, my number inside my box, and the first digit is 2. Is that greater than or equal to 14? No. So now let me look at the next digit with it, 26. Is that greater than or equal to 14? Yes, it's greater than 14. Therefore, I put a chocolate bar over that last digit, which is the 6. Now, every digit after that gets a chocolate bar. So I know when I'm done, this will be a 3-digit answer. My next step is to write my steps for long division on the left side. Does Mrs. Wainwright savor chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Underline the B, arrow from the B to the D. Now I'm going to get ready to divide, but the only problem is my divisor is 14, and I don't know my multiples of 14. And since I don't know my multiples, I'm going to use that scrap paper. I always label it scrap so that if the teacher is giving me partial credit, I can get the credit because I know that's scrap paper, and I also know I can look back at it to help me with this problem or other problems. Okay, so what do I put on the scrap? My divisor, which is 14. I'm going to use benchmark, so I'm going to multiply my divisor times 1, times 5, and times 10. Let's try it. 14 times 1, well, this one will always be thoughtless because any one thing times 1 is itself, so I know 14 times 1 is 14. 14 times 5, this one I'll always have to work out, but it's not hard because I do know my 5 times tables pretty well. So let's solve it. 4 times 5 is 20, put down the 0, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Okay, so my answer is 70. And my last benchmark that I'm going to write down is 14 times 10. And again, this is pretty thoughtless because it's like saying 14 times 1 and tacking the 0 on. I know 14 times 1 is 14, add on the 1 0. So I know my lowest, which is 14 times 1 will equal 14, 14 times 5 will equal 70, and 14 times 10 will equal 140. These give me benchmarks to decide what I'm going to guess and check. Well, my first step is D, and that's divide, so my 14 has to divide into 26. So let's go ahead and look at my benchmark. Well, 26 is larger than 14, but it's smaller than 70. So my answer, my division answer, has to be nothing that's greater than 5, because 14 times 1 is 14, 14 times 5 is 70, and 14 times 5 is already too large. So it's got to be between the 1 and the 5. So what should I try? Well, I think 26 is closer to 14 than it is to 70. So I'm going to try 14 times 2. And again, I work it out on the scrap paper. I say 2 times 4 is 8, put down the 8. 2 times 1 is 2, put down the 2. Does that work? 14 times 2 is 28. And I need it to go into 26. No, 2 isn't going to work because that will be too large. Therefore, my answer has to be 1. So I write down my 1 on my first chocolate bar, and I check off divide. Looking at my steps, my next step is M, which is multiply. So I will say 1 times 14. Hey, I know the answer right there, equals 14. So I check off multiply. My next step, S, is subtract with a subtraction sign and an equal bar. Okay, let's do it. 6 minus 4 equals 2. 2 minus 1 equals 1. So I just subtracted. My next step is compare. And here's the question. Is 12 less than 14? Yes. Perfect. I compared, check it off. My next step, B, means bring down, and is there anything to bring down? Yes. There's a 2. Use my arrow and bring down my 2. I just brought down, so I'm going to underline that new number, and that's what I'm dividing into. Let's go back and divide. 14 has to divide into 122. Well, I see on my scrap work that 14 times 5 is 70, and that's too small. So it's got to be more than 5. 14 times 10 is 140. That's too large. So what should I try? I think I'm going to try 14 times 9, because 122 isn't that far away from 140. So let's work it out. I say 9 times 4 is 36. Put down the 6, carry the 3. I say 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. 14 times 9 is 126. That's too large. So I think I need to try 14 times 8. So notice your scrap after your benchmarks is a lot of guessing and checking. But that's okay. Okay, let's solve it. 8 times 4 equals 32. Put down the 2, carry the 3. 8 times 1 equals 8, plus 3 equals 11. It's going to be 8. So I put 8 on my next chocolate bar, and I check off divide. M means multiply, so I'm going to say 8 times 14, and I don't really know that, but guess what? I figured it out already on my scrap paper, so I know that 8 times 14 equals 112. Write that down, check off multiply. See, it came in handy already. I didn't have to go back and re-multiply because I had the answer right there on my scrap. Okay, S means to subtract, so I'll subtract 122 minus 112. 2 minus 2 equals 0. 2 minus 1 equals 1. 1 minus 1 equals 0. I'm choosing not to put that last 0 because it won't change the answer. 0, 10 is the same thing as 10. Check off subtract. My next step, C, means compare. Is 10 less than 14? Yes. Perfect, I compared. Next step, B, means bring down. Is there anything to bring down? Yes, there is. I have to bring down my 0. I just brought down, so I'm going to underline that new number, and that's the number that I'll be going back up and dividing into. So 14 has to divide into 100. Let's look at my benchmarks. Well, I'm definitely going to try something that's larger than 5, right? Because 14 times 5 is 70, and I need it to equal 100. What should I do? Should I try 14 times 8? Well, no, because that equals 112. That's too big. I know. I'm going to try 14 times 7. Let's see what that works out to. Okay, 7 times 4 is 28. Put down the 8, carry the 2. And 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. That looks good. I'll go with the 7. So I put that 7 in my chocolate bar and check off divide. Next step, multiply. 7 times 14, I look at my scrap and I see that's 98. Write that down, check off multiply. Next step is subtract, so I have 100 minus 98. I could borrow and everything, but I think I know 100 minus 98. That answer is going to be 2. Check off subtract. C means compare. Is 2 less than 14? Yes, it is. Check off compare. B means bring down. Is there anything to bring down? No. There's nothing to bring down. I move to my next letter, which is R. Stands for remainder. Do I have a remainder to write? Yes, I do. My remainder is 2. Remember, if the remainder is 1 or more, you write it down, but if the remainder is 0, you do not write a remainder of 0. Okay, so I wrote my remainder, and my next letter is C, and that means circle my final answer. But I should not be done yet because I can check to see if this problem is correct. The first check I do will be checking with using multiplication with the traditional method. If that's your method of preference, watch that check. If you don't like the traditional method and you prefer the box method, skip past the check for the traditional method. The next check we'll do is with the box method. So here's the problem that I just figured out. It was 2,620 divided by 14 equals 187, remainder 2. And I'm going to check to make sure my answer is correct. So of course I write down check and underline it because the meanest, nastiest 5th grade teacher says I have to. And what am I going to do to check? I'm going to multiply my whole number part of my quotient times my divisor. So I have 187 times 14. Let's solve that. Okay? 4 times 7 equals 28. Put down the 8, carry the 2. 4 times 8 equals 32 plus 2 makes 34. Put down the 4, carry the 3. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. I'm done multiplying by the 4, so I cross it out, and I cross out everything that I carried. I'm moving on to the 1. The 1 is in the tens column, so I put my place value 0 to show that I'm multiplying by a number in the tens column. And now I say 1 times 7 is 7, 1 times 8 is 8, and 1 times 1 is 1. I add those together. 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 7 is 11. Put down the 1, carry the 1. 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 8 is 16. Put down the 6, carry the 1, and 1 plus 1 equals 2. Now I have to add my remainder if I have one, and I do. My remainder is 2, so I will add that on now. 8 plus 2 is 10. Put down the 0, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Nothing plus 6 is 6. Nothing plus 2 is 2. And I have to check, does this answer to my check equal my dividend? Put an arrow up to see. 2,620 is exactly 2,620. So yay, my answer is checked out. I'm happy. My final answer to my problem is 187, remainder 2. If you like to multiply with the traditional method and check with the traditional method, then please stop right now and complete worksheet number 2. If you like to check with the box method, please check the next section. So this is the check for number 1 using the box method if that's your method of preference. This was my original problem. I wound up with 187 remainder 2. So as always, I'm going to write down the word check and make my box. Oops, I forgot to write the word check. I'm not going to go back and redo the video, so let's just pretend there's a check there. I have 187, which is 3 digits, so I'll make 3 sections in my box. 1 is in the hundreds column, so that's 100. 8 is in the tens column, so that's 80. 7 is in the ones column, so that's 7. My divisor, 14. 2 digits, make it into 2 sections. The 1 is in the tens column, so that's a 10. The 4 is in the ones column, so that's a 4. I'm ready to go ahead and fill in my boxes, and I say 1 times 1 equals 1, add 3 zeros on. And I say 8 times 1 equals 8 with 2 zeros, so I'm going to do my 2 zeros and my 8 to line it up nicely. I move down to the next box. I say 7 times 1 is 7 with 1 0. There's my 0 and my 7 for 70. Move over to the top of the right-hand side and I say 100 times 4 is 400. And then I say 8 times 4 is 32 plus 1 0. There's my 0, my 32. And then I say 7 times 4 is 28. There's no zeros. It's simply the 28. I like to add up my boxes because I think it makes less chance of making an addition mistake. So I will say 1,000 plus 800 plus 70 equals 1,870 plus 400 plus 320 plus 28. Well, 0, 0, and 8 is 8. 0, 2, and 2 is 4. And 4 and 3 is 7. Take those numbers, line them up nicely, and add them up. I have 0 plus 8 equals 8. 7 plus 4 equals 11. Put down the 1, carry the 1. I see 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 8 is 16. Put down the 6, carry the 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. Now if I have a remainder, I have to add it. I do have a remainder, which is 2. So I'll add that 2 on. And 8 plus 2 is 10. Put down the 0, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 6 plus nothing is 6. 2 plus nothing is 2. And now I need to check to make sure that that answer is equal to my dividend, which is my number inside the box. They're both 2,620. They are indeed equal. So yay, I'm happy. My answer checked out. If you're a box method checker, please stop the video right now and complete worksheet number 1. Let's take a look at example number 2. 3,186 divided by 62. First thing I do for long division is put my numbers into the division box, eliminating any commas. So I have 3,186 divided by 62. Next thing I do is see where my first chocolate bar goes. So I look at the first digit inside the box, which is a 3. Is that greater than or equal to 62? No. So it's the first two digits, 31. Is that greater than or equal to 62? No, it's less than. So let's look at the first three digits, 318. Is 318 greater than or equal to 62? Yes, it is. So that's where my first chocolate bar goes, is over the 8. I get a chocolate bar over everything after that, so that means when this problem is finished, it will be a 2-digit final answer. Set myself up for long division. Does Mrs. Wainwright savor chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Underline the B, arrow from the B to the D. And I'm going to go ahead and start to divide, but the only problem is I don't know my 62 times tables. Simple enough, I will use scrap and I'll label it because my teacher makes me. My benchmarks are my divisor, 62 times 1. And that's easy, that's 62. 62 times 5, and I'll solve that out. 310. And 62 times 10, that's easy. It's going to be the 62, and tack the 0 on, giving me 620. So I'm ready for my letter D, which is divide, and I know I have to divide 62 into 318. My benchmarks are 62, 310, and 620. I know it's going to be 310, so what did I multiply 62 by to get 310? 5. So I'm going to put a 5 in my first chocolate bar. Check off divide. Next step is multiply. 62 times 5. Hey, I can look at my scrap paper, and I know that equals 310. Check off multiply. S means subtract. I'll put a subtraction sign on an equal bar, and I'll go ahead and subtract, and I get 8. Check it off. C is compare. Is 8 less than 62? Yes. So compare is good. Check it off. B means bring down. Is there anything to bring down? Yes, there's a 6. Use my arrow, so I remember that I brought it down, and bring down the 6. Once I bring down, I am going to underline, because that's what I'm going to divide my 62 into. So I need 62 to go into 86. Well, 62 times 1 is 62. That seems a little low, so let me try 2. 62 times 2 I'm going to solve it out. 2 times 2 is 4. 6 times 2 is 12. 124. No, that's too high. I can't use the 124, so I have to go back to the 62, which is times 1. So I'll put a 1 in my line and check off divide. M means multiply. 1 times 62 is 62. Check off M. S means subtract. I have 86 minus 62. Okay, 6 minus 2 is 4. 8 minus 6 is 2. I subtracted, I check it off. C means compare. Is 24 less than 62? Yes, it is. Perfect, it compares properly. B means bring down. Is there anything to bring down? No. So I move to R, which means remainder. Is there a remainder? Yes, there is. My remainder is 24. And C means circle, so I will circle my final answer. I'm not done yet because it's possible for me to check and make sure my answer is correct. The next page will be a check with the traditional method. The page after that will be a check with the box method. So skip to the check for the method that you prefer. So the answer that I found for my problem was 51 remainder 24. I'm going to do my traditional method check here. I multiply my whole number quotient, which is 51, times my divisor, which is 62. Say 51 times 62. So 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 5 is 10. Put down the 0. Put down the 1 because there's nothing to carry it over. I move to the 6, which is in the tens column. Put it down the 0 and underline it because there's 1 0 in the number 10. And 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. Add these numbers together, and I will get 3,162. If there's a remainder, add it, and there is. I have to add 24, since that's my remainder. I add 4 plus 2 is 6, 6 plus 2 is 8, 1 plus nothing is 1, 3 plus nothing is 3. And now I have to check that that answer is exactly equivalent to my dividend inside the box. And yes, it is. They're both 3,186, so I am a happy person. If you're a traditional method checker, please stop the video and complete worksheet number 2 right now. If not, let's move on. We'll check with the box method. This slide shows how to check example number 2 using the box method checking. So I have to write the word check and underline it because my mean nasty teacher makes me. I'll be multiplying 51, which is my quotient, times 62. So I'll draw my nice box. 51 is 2 digits, so it needs 2 boxes. 5 is in the tens column, stands for 50. 1 is in the ones column, stands for 1. 62 is a 2-digit number, so I'll make 2 columns. 6 is in the tens column, it stands for 60. 2 is in the ones column, it stands for 2. Let's go ahead and multiply. 5 times 6 is 30. Uh-oh, it ends in a 0. Underline it. And now tack on my 2 zeros. 1 times 6 is 6, plus that 1 0 that I tacked on gives me 60. Let's move up in the top right-hand corner. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 0 gives me 100. And 1 times 2 equals 2. So I'm going to add these together. 3,000 plus 60 equals 3,060, plus 100 plus 2 equals 102. Let's add those together, lining them up. 0 plus 2 is 2, 6 plus 0 is 6, 0 plus 1 is 1, 3 plus nothing is 3. So I have 3,162. Next I add my remainder if there is one. Is there a remainder? Yep, it's 24, so that's what I'll add. Add them up. 4 plus 2 is 6, 6 plus 2 is 8, 1 plus nothing is 1, 3 plus nothing is 3. Does 3,186 equal my dividend? Yes, it does. So I am a happy person. If you're a box method checker, please stop the video and complete worksheet number 2 right now. And our final example is an important one because there's going to be some tricky part to this, and I do want you to see how to do it. It's example number 3. I have I have 13,592 divided by 45. First, I'm going to write this in the division box without commas. 13,592 divided by 45. I have to decide where my first chocolate bar goes, so I look at my first digit in the dividend, and it's a 1. Is 1 greater than or equal to 45? Nope. So let's at my first two digits. 13, is 13 greater than or equal to 45? Nope. So let's look at my first three digits. 135, is that greater than or equal to 45? Yes, it is. So a chocolate bar goes at the end of that number, which is the 5, and every digit after that gets a chocolate bar. Now I set myself up for long division. Does Mrs. Wainwright save her chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. Underline the B, arrow from the B to the D. I don't know the multiples of 45, so I'm going to use my scrap paper and label it. And I'm going to use my benchmarks, which will be 45 times 1 equals 45. 45 times 5, which I'll have to figure out. 25, carry the 2, 225. And 45 times 10, which will be 45 with a 0 tacked on, 450. I'm ready for my first step D, which is divide, and I need 45 to go into the number 135. That's going to be someplace between the 1 and the 5, because if 45 times 5 is 225 and I only need 135, has to be somewhere down there. What should I try? I think I'm going to try 45 times 3. And when I work out 45 times 3, I get 135. Hey! That was perfect. It's the exact answer. Great. So my first chocolate bar will get the 3. And I divided, so I check it off. M means multiply. 45 times 3, there it is, 135. Check off multiply. S means subtract. 135 minus 135 is 0. Check off subtract. C means compare. Is 0 less than 45? Yes, it is. Perfect. My next step B means bring down, and is there something to bring down? Yes, I have to bring down that 9. Don't forget to use the arrow. Check off bring down. And when I bring down, I underline, so I underline that 9. Then I go back and divide, and 45 has to go into that newly underlined number, which is 9. Well, then I look at my benchmarks, I say, they're all too big, because 45 times 1 is 45, and I only needed to go in be 9. So 45 times what? Well, what about 45 times 0? That equals 0, and that's less than 9. And 1 is too big. Can't do a number that's too big. So I have to put down a 0, and you can put down a 0 as a chocolate bar digit. Sometimes you have to and you need to. Do not skip it. The answer would be different. So I put down my 0, which is divide. Check off divide. M means multiply, and 0 times 45. Well, anything times 0 is 0. I multiplied. S is subtract. 9 minus 0 equals 9. I subtracted. C is compare. Is 9 less than 45? Yes, it is. I compared. B is bring down. Is there anything to bring down? Yep. Bring down my 2 with an arrow. And when I bring down, I have to underline. That's the new number I'll be dividing into. So 45 has to go into 92. Well, I know that 45 times 3 is 135, and that's too big. And 45 times 1 is 45. That seems too small. So let me check 45 times 2. 45 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Put down the 0, carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Yep, that works. 90 is less than 92. So it was 45 times 2. 2 goes in on my chocolate bar. I just divided. I check it off. M means multiply, and 45 times 2, my answer is right there, is 90. Check off multiply. S means subtract. 92 minus 90 equals 2. Check off subtract. C means compare. Is 2 less than 45? Yes, it is. Check off compare. B means bring down. Is there anything to bring down? Nope. Do I have a remainder? Yes, I do. My remainder is 2. And C means circle. Circle my final answer. So my answer is 302, remainder 2. Remember, sometimes it is necessary to put a digit of 0 on a chocolate bar. So my next slide will be the check, the traditional method, and the slide after that will be the check, the box method. Please move to the check that you need. So my answer was 302, remainder 2, and I'm going to do a traditional method check. So I write down the word check, and I'm going to multiply my quotient times my divisor. 302 times 45. First I'll multiply everything by 5. Work it out. I'm finished with multiplying by 5, so I cross out the 5 and everything that I carried. Now I'm going to multiply by 4, but 4 is in the tens column, so I need to put a 0 and underline it to show that I'm multiplying by a number in the tens column. And I'm going to work this out, multiply everything times 4. 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 3 is 12. Add these numbers together. 0 plus 0 is 0, 1 plus 8 is 9, 5 plus 0 is 5, 1 plus 2 is 3, and nothing plus 1 is 1. Now if there's a remainder, I add it, and there is a remainder, so I will add that 2. 0 plus 2 is 2, 9 plus nothing is 9, 5, 3, 1. And I have to check, does this answer equal my dividend? 13,592 is the same thing as 13,592, so hip hip hooray. My answer of 302, remainder 2, is correct. If you are a traditional method checker, please stop the video and complete worksheet number 3 right now. So this is the check for problem number 3 using the box method check. I write down the word check and underline it because my mean teacher makes me. And I'm going to multiply my whole number quotient times my divisor. So I have 302 times 45. It's the box method, so I will make the box. 302 is a 3-digit number, so I need 3 sections here. 3 is in the hundreds column, standing for 300. There are 0 tens. 2 is in the ones column, standing for 2. My 45 is a 2-digit number, so I need to break that into 2 columns. 4 is in the tens column, it stands for 40. 5 is in the ones column, it stands for 5. And I'm going to go ahead and fill my boxes. So I get 12 with 3 zeros. I think times 0 is 0. And I get an 8 with a 0. Move up to the top. I get a 15 with 2 zeros. Anything times 0 is 0. So plain 0 here. And 2 times 5 is 10. Add up the boxes. 12,000 plus 80 equals 12,080. Plus 1,500 plus 10 equals 1,510. Let's add these together. 0 plus 0 is 0, 8 plus 1 is 9, 0 plus 5 is 5, 2 plus 1 is 3, 1 plus nothing is 1. Then I have to add a remainder if I have one, and I do. My remainder is 2. So add 2 on here, 2, 9, 5, 3, 1. Does that check? Is it the same thing as my dividend? Yes, it is. That gives me my happy smiley face. If you are a box method checker, please stop the video and complete worksheet number 3 right now. So a quick review of this lesson. We are dividing but with 2-digit divisors. We follow the same long division steps as learned in this lesson here, the lesson for 1-digit divisors. These are our steps for long division and the way we remember them. When we divide by a 2-digit divisor that's larger than 12, so we don't know the multiples of that number, we need to use scrap paper to help us. And the lazy man's trick is save that scrap paper to look back at. You may use it even for another problem in this assignment. You take your division problem and you set it up inside the box format. You put in your first chocolate bar and all other chocolate bars. You set up your steps on the left-hand side for does Mrs. Wainwright save her chocolate bars regularly? Certainly. And then we use our scrap. And on our scrap paper, we use our benchmark. So we say our divisor times 1, our divisor times 5, and our divisor times 10. We know those are pretty easy because the 1 and 10 are simple, and 5 is easy enough to figure out. Those benchmarks help us as we work down the line to figure out what we should guess and check as we do other multiplication problems to find the answer to this division problem. Sometimes it is necessary to put a 0 on a chocolate bar, as it was here, because 45 times 1 is 45. That was too high, so it has to be 45 times 0. Good luck with this lesson.